हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ मौनव्याख्या प्रकटितपरब्रह्मतत्त्वयुवानं वर्षिष्ठान्तेव सदृशिगणैरावृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दरूपम् स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे वटपिटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषण्णं सकलमुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जननमरणदुःखच्छेददक्षं नमामि। चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरुस्तु मौनं व्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तुच्छिन्न संशया हृदये सर्वविद्यानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So welcome everyone. Today we'll be looking at our final topic in Tattva Bodha. And so far we've covered several. We looked at the introduction topics to Vedanta. From there on, we continue to the fourfold qualifications required to pursue the study of Vedanta in the Sadhana Chatushtaya. And then we looked at the Vyashti, which is the individual. So we looked at the characteristics of the Jiva, the three Shariras and so on. And then we moved on to Samashti, which is the manifestation, Shrishti and Ishvara. And then finally we connected them together in the teaching of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, where you see that the self of the Jiva is the same as the self of Ishvara, which is Brahman. So today we will be looking at the laws of karma, and this is distinct from karma yoga. So when we looked at karma yoga, we looked at the proper actions, the proper attitudes, and what are the panchamaha yagnas, and all of these things related to making you a better person and guiding you towards your actions. But today we'll actually understand the laws themselves in detail. But before we do that, I just want to touch upon a few closing notes on the last thing that we covered. So let me just share the screen quickly. Is everyone able to see my screen? I'm just trying a new setting.
Yes, we are able to see.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So last time when we talked about, does everyone remember this model? The R1, RM, RC model. So Atma is the original consciousness. I mean, I won't use words such as original or not, but it's just to keep in mind and then discard it later, just so that you have an idea. Because a lot of I was watching a debate actually between some scientists and philosophers on one of these science festivals, and I see that they were discussing the matter of consciousness, and this prompted me to talk a little bit about this today, because consciousness, as the medical world and the scientific world knows about, they mean conscious in terms of alertness. That is their understanding of what consciousness is. So for example, if a person goes into a coma or whatever, something happens, then you say, okay, the person is unconscious, and then if the person wakes up, then you say, okay, now he's conscious. So this is not the consciousness that we are talking about. Consciousness for us as Atma is this all pervading, all existing principle. It's Satchitananda. So here the chit is not the same as the medical consciousness of the wakeful state and the unconscious state. Rather, this is the state in the presence of which all cognition takes place. So this is a very important distinction I wanted to make, that consciousness as we talk about as the Atma is not the same as cognition. Cognition is a function of the mind. So the mind is able to cognize, right? The mind can become in quotes like conscious or unconscious, but the consciousness we are talking about is the principle that lights up the mind. It is that in the presence of which the mind is able to function, it is able to become alert, it is able to cognize, it is able to even go back into deep sleep. But what remains is consciousness. So this is the original consciousness I'm talking about. So all these, if you can see my cursor, you have RC1, RC2, RC3, and all of these things. They are the reflected consciousnesses. And again, this is all quotes because you don't think that consciousness is getting reflected, right? Like through a mirror. But it's just an example or it's just an udaharana to use to illustrate the idea that every individual that somehow thinks that they are a conscious being, that limited, constricted, apparent manifestation of the consciousness is only the reflected. It's called the Pratibimba Chaitanyam, the Pratibimba Chaitanyam, which is the reflected so-called consciousness. But in reality, there's only one Atma, and this Atma lights up all the jivas in the Jagat. So I wanted to, make that very clear because many times, in case you ever have discussions with, people from the scientific field or, Westerners in general, then they don't have this idea of what consciousness is. And so you may be debating on a certain term, and then they may be thinking one thing, you may be thinking another, then you will never make any progress through there. So it's always very important to define what you are talking about so that people don't get the wrong idea. So is this consciousness part very clear as opposed to cognition? If so, then we can move on to, okay, so, let's look at the laws of karma. But before I really share the slide, I want to hear what some of you have encountered in your teachings or understanding what karma is. So, if you have to describe karma very briefly, can you just say a few words?
Karma means action, and karma has phalam too, means action and result. The phalam can be dependent on karma. Like if I do positive karma, karma is neutral. Okay, if I do action, then depending on that, the phalam will be either positive or negative, depending upon the situation. That is what I understand of
Yeah, that's
karma.
very good. That's pretty much a good way to put it in a nutshell. And as you actually rightly said, the important thing, if you look at the bottom of this slide, karma is both action and result. And this is something I want to talk about. I want to go a little bit deeper into this topic before I get into the main teaching of the Tattva Buddha. Usually, in the West, we have this concept of duality. There's a lot of dualism, and I'll probably stress this a couple of times again in the future also when we talk. There was a person called, Descartes, and you know this quote, right? I think, therefore I am. Very popular quote. And so, I want to actually make a joke about that since Pujya Swamiji made this joke originally. So once Descartes, he was a great French philosopher, and I believe he was also a mathematician. So, he contributed a lot to the coordinate system and other things related to geometry and so on. So he believed in the fundamental difference between mind and the brain. Okay. And so, we will see that a lot of these people, these great thinkers, had some element of truth in their thinking, but because they did not have Shastra and they did not have this, idea of the Vedas as a pramana, they never got the overarching view of consciousness. So Descartes said that, I think, therefore I am. And so he believed that there's something called a mind, which is distinct from something called the brain. The mind is not a property of the brain, it's not part of the brain, but something that's separate, it just lies there. So, one example that he had given is that suppose you can uh, become really small, like microscopic creature, and you are able to enter your brain, and then you see all these different components of the brain. Of course, today we know that they are called neurons. Back then he didn't know what they're called, but he said if you can see the brain, it will be like you're walking through a forest. But as you walk through that forest of your brain, you'll never be able to find the mind, right? I mean, you'll see these different trees and you'll see these different arrangements, but where is the mind? You can't see the thoughts when you walk through the brain. And therefore, his understanding was correctly, understood by others also. Ki, the mind is separate from the brain. So here when we talk about the mind, we call it the Sukshma Sharira, right? The Antakarana. That is what's pervading the physical body, the Stula Sharira. And therefore the Golakam, the organs of the physical body, are only a seat for the Sukshma Sharira, but they are distinct from that. So, as far as this is concerned, a lot of philosophers in the West also did get it right. But then they are missing out the main idea, which is Atma. So they are getting to the Sukshma Sharira level, and they're able to infer that there is something like the Sukshma Shariya, which we call the Sukshma Shariya, and they called that as the self or the mind or whatever. Their self was at the mind level. So that is an important thing I wanted to mention. And he believed that the thought is the fundamental basis for everything else. So, and so then he made this statement which says, "I think, therefore I am." And the day you stop thinking, you stop existing, because the thoughts are you. That is what he believed, which of course we know is wrong, but it's a good take on it. Now, Pujya Swamiji made a joke that once Descartes went to a French roadside cafe, and he was just waiting for the waiter to come and take his order. So the waiter asked him, like, would you like to have some coffee? And Descartes said, "I don't think so," and he disappeared. So anyway, so Pujya Swamiji says that for Vedantins, I am, therefore I think, right? In the presence of the self, the very self that lends this Jiva Jagat existence and also consciousness. Therefore, the fact that you are, that it enables the Antakarana to think, but without you, there's nothing else. So that is the difference in philosophy. So, some of the Western philosophers, I don't talk about the religions because I believe Western philosophy is a bit more superior than the Western religions. But the Western philosophers believe that, you think, therefore you are, and we say that I am, therefore I think, and that is a kind of like a twist. Now, the reason I brought this up is that the West, because of Descartes, they have developed a strong fundamental basis in philosophy called Cartesian duality. And that means that they always believe in dualities, and we've also addressed this earlier, I believe. But they divide the world into twos. So you have mind versus matter, right? This is a very common expression people use, mind over matter. And then you talk about living versus non-living and all. Whereas for us, we don't believe in these opposites. We believe in a continuous spectrum. So when we talk about, even in terms of action and result, that is how people view things, right, in the world. But for us, karma is both action and result. So there is no duality here as far as karma is concerned. Karma is the action and the result are not different from each other. The result is contained within the action. If you really think about it, when I perform, if I clap, I cannot stop the sound from emanating, right? The very fact that I have performed the action of clapping, the result is contained right there. Similarly, if I throw a ball up and the ball falls back into my hand, the very fact that I threw it up and I performed this action, the result was already there. The result was already present in the action. The only difference is that it is separated by the passage of time. So the action and result are seemingly separated by the passage and the movement of time, but otherwise, this is a deep way of understanding it, that action and result are the same. They are two sides of the same coin. In fact, the only reason we separate it is because we have evolved to look at time in a way, and we are able to experience the passing of time, and therefore the action and the result appear separate. So karma is both action and result, and that's what I wanted to see. um, so, the first principle of karma is really you have drashtaphalams, which are immediate and seen results. So, like we just spoke about, if I throw a ball up and it lands back into my hand, that is an immediate result. It's a seen result. And I'm able to connect it to a prior action, which is that I threw a ball up and therefore it fell down, obviously. Now, in some instances, you'll have adrishtaphalam, which is unseen results. So, like, if somebody's, I help somebody cross the road, or if somebody drops a bag of groceries and I help pick them up, right? So there's no direct result that I can see that I'm receiving because of that. Or if I hurt somebody also, there's not usually a direct result, and therefore, it's kind of like out of mind, out of sight, and I don't think about it. And then later on, I get a result from some other place, but I'm not able to connect it to its source. I won't be able to connect the result I receive in the future with the action that I performed a relatively long time ago. So any result that we receive, that we are, that for which we've not performed an immediate action, those are all adrishtaphalams. So is this clear, or are there any questions around this?
No, it's clear.
Okay. So, usually life is a mixture of drashtaphalams and adrashtaphalams. So if I'm driving a car, I take a little turn, obviously my car will turn in the direction, and that's a result. Similarly, adrashtaphalams are really things that we are concerned about, because nobody needs Shastra to talk about drishtaphalams, right? I mean, that is something evident. It's just cause and effect, which is immediate. But as far as adrashtaphalam goes, we we accept and understand the laws of karma, and we understand that no action goes unaccounted for, and no result is unaccounted for. So whatever I receive is a consequence of an action that I have performed at some point in time, though I may be unaware of the situation. So uh, yeah, that
Sir,
is
I
what.
have a doubt.
Yeah.
I have a doubt. Is karma like isolated to an individual? Like I am the bearer of my karma. Like no one is. I am not talking about dependency. Means I am taking ownership of my karma. I am the whole owner. Like, are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
So in the at times we say, right, I will pray for you, I will do for you. So how come it is related to this? When we say Lokan Samastam Sukhino, that is my prayer or my wish, we can say. Then our my karma, it is not affecting the world, or if it affects, how it affects the world.
Very good question, and this is the kind of discussion we are really looking for, because today we should see a lot of case studies, because theoretically, as far as understanding these definitions, it's easy to do that, right? But this, how it applies to our worldly situations is important. So let's take two situations. Okay, let's take the situation of somebody else suffering for your sins, when we've heard where this comes from, right? So let's take that example. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense, because I cannot take your papam, right? If you perform something wrong, I cannot take the result for that and say that, okay, I'm suffering because you've done something wrong. That kind of violates the whole law of causality, right? Action is performed here and result is gone somewhere else. It's kind of like I put money in the bank and somebody else gets it. It doesn't make sense. When I withdraw the cash, I'm supposed to get it by myself. So this whole concept of a savior, I just wanted to put that out, that the whole idea of a savior who's able to sacrifice their life for me, and they die for my sins and so on, doesn't make sense. But now what you are saying actually does make sense, because let's say if somebody is ill and I pray for that person, I am performing an action. That action will give rise to a result. My action is directed towards a certain intention, right? There's a certain intention associated with my action, and therefore the direction determines where the result will also go. Like, just take the example of you're driving a car. Now, if I direct my action to the right, then my car will turn right. If I direct to the left, it'll turn left. So wherever you direct your actions and your intentions, it is bound to end up there. So if I pray for you, if something is wrong in your life or whatever, then there's an action generated. Now there's a result also, right? But now here is a tricky part. If I pray for a positive result for you, then shouldn't I be getting the positive result because I'm praying, right? So what comes to me if I pray, right? That is the question. So what comes to
Yes.
me as a result of, say, Sukhina Sarva, this Shanti mantras, like, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma, Kasyat Dukha Bhag Bhavet. So every time I recite these mantras, what is coming to me, as you rightly stated, when the effect is going to the rest of the universe? Sarve Janan, right, is going to everybody. No individual is isolated from this result. But what comes to me here as a result of my action is Chitta Shuddhi. You see, Chitta Shuddhi is a cleansing of the mind. When my mind is being purified as a result of chanting the Shanti mantras, that purification is a result. And my action is directed outwards, but the result here is internal. The result here is directed towards your mind, though the result also goes outside. So the direct result, or well, these are both adrashta phalams. The adrashta phalam here, one of them is that, every being in this jagat will receive a small iota of your prayer, a small, you know, uh, bit of punya will be generated for every single jiva that you prayed for. And at the same time, on the other side, the same result will come back to you also as punya in the form of chitta shuddhi. So this is what we would call like a nishkama karma, in terms of Gita. So here, you're praying very selflessly for another person, and you're praying for their benefit, for their hitam, for their good. And therefore it comes back to you in the form of chitta shuddhi, and therefore you are the recipient of your own action. And similarly, if I want to do something, if I help a person pick up their groceries, they are a benefactor of my action, isn't it? Right? Let's start with drashta phalams, and then we can move to adrashta. So suppose a person's walking on the streets and their groceries fall off the bag, and then I pick them up and I help them out. So they have received some result, right over here, due to the actions that I have performed. But the result that they have received is again a result of their own actions they may have performed elsewhere in some other point. So it's kind of like you can regress backwards and then you can trace it back to the source, but then there's no original source because there was no first birth, as we will see later. And so similarly, if I pray for someone's well-being, then they are getting a result of my action, which is not really, but they are getting a result of their own action. But it appears as though that I have generated an action, they're getting a result for it. But what's coming to me is chitta shuddhi. Similarly, if I pray for somebody's, I wish ill for another person, I want bad omens to surround them, then definitely the result is again as a consequence of their own past actions, and I am only a nimitta through which their results are delivered. You see the difference between nimitta. So when I perform an action and somebody else gets a result, I'm only a nimitta for their own karma to come to them. Whereas what comes to me, if I pray for somebody's, for somebody falling sick or something, I'll get chitta ashuddhi. My antakarana will become impure, and that impurity will lead me away from jnanam. So it's all kind of like a intertwined circle of life. So every person. So the point is that every person who ever receives a result, it is a consequence of their own actions. But somebody else may be a nimitta to deliver the result to that person. It may appear that the other person is taking up the papa or the punya of the person, which is not true.
So we can say that thoughts drive for karma. Like my thinking or my thoughts are the fuel for karma. Like which prompts the karma. So based on my thoughts, I might have phalam.
Yes. So karma will have qualities associated with it, right? So you'll have intensity also, and you'll also have the quality. So quantity and quality both are involved over here. So there are three ways to perform karma, right? Mano, vachika, kaya. So through your mind, mental actions are there, right? When you meditate also, that's a karma, and then you're creating this chitta shuddhi in this space in your mind to contemplate. That is also an action. So anything, when you do prayers, when you chant mantras, it's all karmas. When you chant mantras loudly, it's a vachika karma. When you chant it inside your mind, it is a manasa karma. So similarly, when you perform actions with your limbs, right? You perform pujas and you perform these elaborate Vedic rituals, and that is a kayaka karma. So karmas can be performed through mano, vacho, kaya, all three. And it is usually the intention, the mind, which drives the quality of the, it kind of like adds the quality to the karma. So I may be performing a good action to help somebody with a very bad intention. Maybe I want something from them, or I have some devious plans in my mind that I want to make them feel obligated and so on. So there are many reasons behind which one may perform karmas, and the motivation and the intention definitely drives the result. So the result is determined through all three, right? Mano, vacha, and kaya. And the mind, as you rightly said, it creates the intention. Whether it's positive or negative, that is to be seen. So, again, as we go to the second principle, we see that an action can either be punya or papa, right? You cannot have an action which is like, I mean, yeah, you can have somewhat relatively neutral actions. If I sip water, then I mean, you can see it as in a sense it's punya only, right? Because I'm quenching my thirst and my body is feeling rejuvenated, whatever, after I take a glass of water. So, but anything that you do will usually have these two gradations, and it's not a hard line. It's not kind of like a binary that zeros and ones. That okay, this is purely punya and this is purely papa. You can have this gentle gradation where something may be more punyakari than another, and something maybe even more than that. It depends on where you stand on the number line. So for us, things are always a grade. It's always a gradient. It's never a binary this versus that. So like for example, you'll have some in Western theology or Western theologies. You'll have this concept of eternal heaven and hell, right? So you spend a few measly years on this planet Earth, and your few small 50, 60, 70-year actions will determine an eternal result in the form of heaven and hell, which is again kind of very counterintuitive. How can limited actions give rise to limitless, endless results? So there are all these flaws over here. Whereas in our concept, even talking about swarga and naraka, right? People usually translate our swarga and naraka as heaven and hell, but I prefer not using those expressions because again, heaven and hell are words which have been digested by the West, and it implies a certain thing in their understanding. Therefore, it would serve us well if we used our unique terms. So Swarga is just like planet Earth. Well, it's a more favorable place, let's put it that way, but it's still a realm of existence where people can live and they can interact with others. So if you go to Swarga, it's just kind of like comparable to a person who wants to spend money in Las Vegas, right? They go to Las Vegas, they blow their money off into a casino, they have some fun, they live in these seven-star hotels, they have a wonderful view of the city, and these night lights and swimming pools and rooftop, fun. And once their cash runs out, then what do? They have to return back to their measly jobs, and they have to again earn for another year to go back to the next trip. Similarly, a person who goes to Swarga, they are basically using up their punya karma, which is not good or bad in a sense, right? Because obviously Swarga may be desirable to some people because it's where you experience greater pleasure than the planet Earth. But at the same time, what is important to know for a Vedantin is that all your punya or your papa will run out if you are relying upon it. So it's better not to rely upon it, right? If we recall the qualification of Vairagya, iya muthata phalabhoga Vairagya, right? Swarga bhogeshu ichha rahityam. That is the definition. So, the enjoyments and the spoils that you experience in Swarga have dispassion towards it. It should not be your driving force. It should not motivate you to perform punya. Because if you perform punya, punyakari karmas with the motivation of enjoying its results somewhere, then you will enjoy it as you wanted. But then once it runs out, you're back to square one, right? You start again where you left off. So it's kind of like a wasted pursuit. And therefore, anything that we perform, any action we perform should be run with the right attitude of nishkama karma, where we wish to contribute to others, we wish to help people genuinely, and we're not like looking for some, altruistic gain or ulterior gain on our part. We are very altruistic in our actions, and we are very charitable in our deeds and our thoughts. So even when Pujya Swamiji, look at him for example, right? He's created this movement. He started this movement called Aim for Seva, and he's very clear about not calling it an organization because he doesn't like organizational structure, but that's a different discussion. um, you know the movement propitiates itself, it drives itself, right? Once people are under uh, the right understanding that this aids so many people, he adopts lakhs and lakhs of people together, and he adopts these entire villages, and then they get all the benefit that he's started this movement that he started. So the here he doesn't have any motivation that I should get something positive for it. He's doing it for the mere sake of the dhanam. This is what dhanam is free from any ulterior motives. You just want to give for the sake of giving, for the sake of seeing other people happy, and any action that we perform with this attitude will come back to us as chitta shuddhi. So actions can come back as material gain, material pleasure, material prosperity. You may have a big car, you may have a big house, you may have everything in the world, but if you don't have a peaceful mind, then it's all useless. So actually, even within punya, you'll have things which will come to you in the form of pleasures, and you'll have things which come to you in the form of chitta shuddhi, and therefore, the right attitude is important. So, the karma will have a gradation of either it'll be punyakari or papakari. Any questions here so far? Okay, we can move on to the next one. And just keep interrupting in between if you like, because this is a topic that, the more we analyze different cases, like, we do a case study, we'll understand more about it. Because otherwise, as far as the definition goes, they're very simple. Drashtaphalam, adashtaphalam, punyam, papam. There's not much to talk about the definitions, but it's more about different examples in life that we can really encounter. So let's look at the three types of karmas. And again, I want to clarify here that when we talk about the three types, these are not hard coded. They are not something that are absolute, right? Everything in this is a mithya model. So the only reason we give it a term as sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, agami karma is because for our own categorical understanding. But in mithya reality, there's nothing that's categorical. The only absolute statement that one can make is that Satchitananda Brahman, and this existence, consciousness, and limitlessness. There's nothing other than that which is absolute. So so we have sanchita karma. Let's look at sanchita karma. The sum total of all karmas of the jiva stored since anadi kala. Anadi kala is beginningless time. So oftentimes there's a question that people ask that how did the first result come about, right? When was the first action performed? And this expression Anadi Kala negates that idea, because there's no such thing as first. There was never a first life. The Shrishti has been Anadi. It has been an endless cycles of Shrishti and Pralayam, Shrishti and Pralayam. There's never been a first Shrishti, because we don't believe in such a theology. Again, compared to the Western theologies where they believe that there was, one life and there was one time of creation, we believe this has been a continuous cycle of manifestation and unmanifestation. So it's kind of like rolling forward, and there's never a beginning. There's never a first time a person performed an action. So all the actions that have been performed since Anadi Kala, since beginningless time for a particular jiva, this is all stored, and this is what we call Sanchita Karma. The prarabdha karma is the little bit of pocket money that you put in your pocket and you go to live one particular lifetime. So the karma that you carry into this lifetime of yours, that is the prarabdha karma, and it determines many things. Like, for example, you're born, your parents are determined by prarabdha karma, your gender is determined by prarabdha karma, how your genes are, your DNA, your how you look and how you think and how intelligent you are, and all of these things. You have a starting capital that you walk into this world with, right? And the starting capital that you enter this world with, including the situation around you, that is all prarabdha karma. And it will continue to unfold, as you live through your life. The person that you marry is also prarabdha karma. It is two people's collective prarabdha karma that bring them together. And then, the things that you encounter in your life, many times they're prarabdha karma. So we'll come back to Prarabdha Karma in detail again. So then we look at Agami Karma. Agami Karma are the new actions that, the actions and results that are generated by the Jiva, right? So new karmas that you create in this lifetime. Now, the Agami Karma may have some direct results, right? So you may perform an action like throwing the ball up and it comes back in your hand. That is a direct result. There may be some actions you perform for which the results are stored again, right? And after you live out this lifetime, in your next life, these results will again be stored back in your sanchita, and some amount may come back as prarabdha in the next lifetime, or it may come 10 lives later, it may come 100 lives later, we don't know. So it really, the result of your actions, it really depends upon how ripe the situation is. So, think of it as a seed that you sow in the soil. Now, when the seed will sprout depends on so many things. It depends upon the soil fertility. It depends upon the rainfall, upon the climate. It depends upon the humidity, all of these things. So, whenever the situation is right, that is when your karma will bear result. The seed will sprout. Similarly, when we perform an action, some actions may sprout immediately in the form of results, and some may be delayed, and then that will again come back to you in your next janma and maybe a few janmas later, or it may come immediately, or it may come sometime after a few days or a few years also. We don't know that. And that's why Krishna Bhagavan says that, the fruits of the actions, like, don't worry about the fruits, you just perform the actions with the right attitude. Karmane vadikaraste mahaphaleshu kadachana. And this is probably the most misquoted, misunderstood verse. Many people say that you should not have an expectation when you perform an action, right? Like, just perform an action, don't have expectations. That is wrong. You cannot do anything without expectations in life. That would make your life meaningless. Like, if I drink a glass of water, as I said earlier, I expect my thirst to be quenched. So you cannot be free of expectations when you're performing an action. But the point is that Bhagavan says in the Gita that ma phaleshu kadachana, you don't have control over the results. The results are entirely up to the laws. So once you performed an action, the result is not under your control. That is only something that Ishvara handles, right? And that is what we term Ishvara as karma phala data, the one who dispenses the fruits of one's karma. So, the quote does not mean that don't have expectations. That is probably the most misinterpreted verse in Gita. The quote means that you perform the action, but you don't have control over the result. That's all. There's a difference between saying don't expect a result and that you don't have control over it. When I understand clearly that I don't have control over the actions I've performed, when I clap, I cannot control the sound. It's not within my control. It's just the laws that handle it, right? The laws of nature will handle the result. The only thing, the moment I perform an action, the result is already guaranteed. I don't have control over a result, whether it's favorable or unfavorable. So, yeah, coming back.
So can we say that what I don't just a second.
Yeah.
So can we say that the prasadam, whatever the karma phalam we get, we should accept as Ishvara prasadam, right?
Yes. Whatever action you perform is Ishwara Arpana. You're dedicating it to Ishwara, and whatever result you receive, you're receiving as a prasadam from Ishwara. And this gives us a lot of objectivity because we acknowledge the order, we acknowledge dharma, right? The laws of karma are also part of dharma only. We acknowledge the universe works in a certain way. Ishvara Shrishti has this inbuilt order that when the causality exists, the cause and result are there. I don't have control over the result. I have only control over my actions. And therefore, I must perform the right sorts of actions. I must perform the right kinds of actions with the right attitude. And therefore, once you do that, then you are relaxed, right? You don't have any tension after that because you know that the laws will handle it. Trusting the order is trusting Ishvara. Having faith in this order is what we call, forming a relationship with Ishvara. Because the more I am in tune with this order, the more I am related to Ishvara. So it's very important to have this relationship where I accept everything as a grace of Bhagwan, whatever result, whether it's calamity, whether it is something that you want in your life, all of these things are nothing but a result of your own actions. And therefore, you are taking responsibility for over your life, right? When I'm comfortable with the things I receive, it shows that I'm a responsible person, that I'm not complaining. If I do something wrong, obviously I should receive something that is proportional to that action. So if I do something that's right, then I will receive what is right, and therefore I let it go at that. I let it go with the idea that I should perform the right actions, and now I should be at peace with myself because whatever I get is only a result of it. So it really helps to trust this order and understand this order because Shraddha is only faith pending understanding. But once I start understanding the way the laws work, then I don't need to have faith anymore. It's a deep and refined way of looking at life. So you know uh, if we take a case study, like for example, take an atom bomb, right? Now you have something called collective prarabdha karma. A lot of people may share a similar result. Like the most common example you have is marriage, right? You have two people who are sharing their life, and they are sharing more or less similar situations, whether it's financial situations or family situations. They have a common stake in it. So these are the collective prarabdha karmas of people that are kind of you know they're tied together basically. So when the US dropped a bomb in 1945 in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, atom bomb, for the first time in warfare history, uh, millions of people died. I don't know the number, but it was a horrendous amount, and all of their karmas were related. So it's almost, we cannot really figure out the ways of the universe, the way the laws work, but we have that understanding that all the people were there together in one event to see the same result into their lives, and this also includes the deprived families, not just the people who died, but more so their families. So they all, it's kind of like the laws uh, brought them together. The birth and the situation, all it brought them into one place to see a similar result. And this is the result of a collective prarabdha karma. The collective karmas of many jivas together have face the same sort of result. So another example of a collective prarabdha karma would be the idea of an avatar, right? The avatara is, we'll actually probably cover this when we talk about the Gita, but the body of the avatara is a manifestation of the punya karma generated by all the jivas in distress. So, when a jiva prays fervently, when there's a lot of adharma on the rise, and like Bhagavan says in the Gita, yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata. So, whenever adharma is on the rise, and whenever dharmas violate, whenever the good people are in peril, then these people will pray and they will, really ask for a solution. The solution could come in many different ways, but here it comes in the form of an avtara. The avtara is a result of the collective prarabdha, the collective prayers of all the jivas that are in distress, and the Avtara manages to solve the problems for them. So it is again a way for the Shrishti to handle itself. It's kind of like a self-correcting mechanism. So, this is the idea of collective Pravda Karma.
And one more thing is prarabdha karma and agami karma are the subsets of sanchita karma, right? It's a means are they part of uh, sanchita karma? Like
San- Sanchita karma is like your total bank account, right? I mean, if you think about it in these terms, Sanchita karma is all the money that you've accumulated ever, and Prarabdha karma is like the amount that you take in your wallet when you go out for a dinner or something. So Sanchita karma is like the sum total of all the karmas that are ever performed by the jiva. It's like the sum total of all the results that are stored, and a small portion of the Sanchita karma is handed out as prarabdha in every janma. But again, the Sanchita bag also continues to grow, right? Because the Sanchita, when I perform new actions, when I have agami karma into the picture, then I perform new actions. Some results are immediate, and some results are again stored, and they go back into Sanchita bag. So this bag of Sanchita karma remains. And then again in the next life, one portion of that, one spoon of the ocean of Sanchita karma is again given as prarabdha karma. So, you know, countless actions have been performed over countless lifetimes. And these countless actions and the results are stored as Sanchita. And whereas Prarabdha are limited results, limited, restricted to one life. So how many breaths, there's a saying in the Vedika teachings that your lifespan, the number of breaths that you are going to take in this life is already determined from the time of your birth. How many breaths you will take. Now you can elongate sometimes, you can even shorten them to some extent, but you cannot drastically completely overpower them, right? So prarabdha karma, this is a good point you brought up because prarabdha karma comes in two gradations again, like with two intensities. One is prabala and the other is durbala. So durbal means weak and prabal means strong. So the Durbal Prarabdha karmas are some of the things that you can overcome, right? For example, if you go to a Jyotisha, and I have a lot to say on that also, but if you go to a Jyotisha and they tell you that acha chalo, you can perform so and so rituals to overcome the effect of that kind of a karma that you have in your life, then that is Durbala karma. You can overcome it, but then there may be some prarabdha which is so strong that a lot more actions are required to overcome it, and perhaps they may not be enough. So, how much one has to perform in order to overcome the result of a prarabdha karma in your life, it really depends upon the strength of that prarabdha karma. How much, intensity has gone into the result. Because, of course, it's something that's based on an action you performed previously, but the result may also have an intensity associated with it, and therefore you have Durbala and Prabala. So, uh, usually, like, think of it this way: you have a river and it's going downstream. Now you have a person that's trying to swim upstream, right? Dep- Now, if the flow of the river is relatively slow, then you may be able to overcome the stream and you may be able to flow up a little bit. You may be able to swim against it. But if the flow is faster than your ability to swim at that speed to kind of like go upstream, then you will continue being pushed down. You see what I'm saying? So that is how Prarabdha works. It's kind of like the the flow of water, and then if we choose to flow with it, or we can sometimes even may choose to go against it. Like for example, you have some karmas, some bad things you may have done in your life, and you have prayashchitam karmas, right? The prayashchitam can completely perhaps overcome the negative result, or it can partially overcome the negative result. But if it's partially overcoming, that means that the prarabdha is really strong, and if it's completely overcoming, means the prarabdha was weak and your agami could overcome it. So life is really, all the results you receive in life are a mishran. It's a mixture. It's a combination of your prarabdha and your agami karma. So some results I receive in this life because of some actions I've performed, and some results I receive because of actions I've performed in a previous lifetime. So it's impossible for us to separate the two because they are so finely intertwined, and we don't have insight into the laws, the way the laws work. We just know that the law exists and that the result is an action, or it's a result of our actions. So the prarabdha and agami are endlessly intertwined, and it's impossible to separate like where it comes from. So
Yeah, I guess this understanding of laws is very clear because there are some people who, keep complaining and start blaming other people for their karma. So, we have often seen people complaining that, okay, why I am suffering, just one bad situation, and they just give up on their faith and the trust they have in Shastras. And they also have like this feeling that, okay, nothing is going to work. I was already a good person. Now it's just to do something punya because already I'm getting a bad action because a bad result because of my action. So I think this laws of karma will, if you have a clear understanding, you just tend to accept things the way it is, and you start focusing on your present actions, which will, again give a rise to a better result in future, because you can't change the past.
Very true. That is very true. In fact, what you say, the why me syndrome, right? Over here, the why me syndrome goes away because a person stops really saying that why does this happen to me? Why is my luck so bad? Exactly. And it gives you the objectivity you require to perform your actions in the present, as you said. So that's very true. So um,
Also, and so there's one doubt. So maybe if a Gyani is there, like the one who is liberated,
hmm.
so in that case, Sanchitam will go away, right?
Yes.
And what about Prarabdha? Will that remain, or will that also
The
go away?
prarabdha affects the physical body and the sukshma sharira, right? So sometimes some thoughts
Ah,
enter your mind, and sometimes your physical body has some conditions, and the events that are unfolding into your life, like your family and all of these things will remain. They will remain the same. They will continue unfolding, but the one to whom these karmas come is the jiva, not the jnani. The jnani has assimilated the fact that I am not the jiva, I am Brahman. So, in fact, I wanted to even talk about this more in detail, but this is a very good
right.
question. We'll talk about the life cycle of a jnani and the life cycle of an agnani with relationship to the karma. So, we'll actually come back to that. But yeah, very good point. So, remind me if I forget. But yeah. So,
Okay.
as you correctly said, like some of the advantage of understanding these laws, exactly what you put it basically on this page, right? That first of all, it explains the disparity between different beings and their respective lifestyles. So many people have this thing that, oh, why is that person enjoying so much, and why am I in such a poor condition, and why am I so miserable? Or, why is life so unfair to me that this person was born to rich parents and I was born to poor parents, all of these things. This understanding completely eliminates this idea because you realize that look, I am born in a particular situation because of a result of my actions, right? it gives you it it gives you that maturity to look at life as a you take responsibility over yourself, you take responsibility over your past also, you take responsibility for actions you performed in all the lifetimes. You know that whatever I receive right now is nothing but a manifestation of my past karmas. So you no longer have this disparity in understanding, at least, that why is this person this way and why am I this way, right? Some people, I mean, imagine parents. Some people may have handicapped children, they may have blind children, they may have like some birth defects, and then they grow up looking at their children in a very different way. But the point is that, if a person becomes very graceful, the only way to be graceful about it is by knowing that this is what I'm given, this is a given. Whatever is given is a result of my actions, and therefore why am I complaining? Why can't I love the child as much as I would love a healthy child? So people understand that the differences that exist between different human beings or creatures or whatever, they exist as a result of karma, and that this makes them very objective. It makes them very compassionate also. They start looking at life more positively. Second thing is that, the second point is that uh, Shrishti does not play by chance, right? Everything is in order. Many times people say, oh, my bad luck, I did not pass the job interview, or oh, I had really good luck, I was miserable at the interview, but the person they selected decided to leave the company and he went to a different one, and then they selected me. So some people have like really good luck and some people have really bad luck, and then they turn this unseen karma, unseen result as luck. But in our tradition, there's no such thing as luck. We don't believe that there's anything called luck. We believe that everything is a result of our karma. The karma is a result, the action is a result. They are inseparable. So, luck is a very random thing, right? Luck cannot favor one person and then it cannot hurt another person. It has to, it has to play by the rules. It has to play by the way Shrishti functions, and the laws of karma are inbuilt in the Shrishti. This is all what we call dharma. Dharma is the order, the cosmic order, the rhythm. And therefore, as Vedikas, we should never believe or use the expression luck in that sense, that okay, some people are lucky and some people are unlucky. They should look at it in the terms of karma. This is your prarabdha karma, this is my prarabdha karma. What results I get are a result of my actions. Why complain? Then, as you correctly stated earlier, the why me syndrome goes away, right? I stop complaining that, why is this happening to me only, why not to anybody else? Because the irony is that everybody says the same thing. At some point in their life, they will all say, why me? But the fact is that you get what
True.
you reap what you sow. So, and there's a saying in Gujarati that "Je thai tej nyay." So whatever occurs in your life is a law only. It's justice, right? Everything is justified because whatever event that befalls you, whether it's a positive or a negative event, it is all justified. It is all within the laws of karma. So yes, then it makes one more accepting of the situation as we talked about. Then faith in Shastra remains unshaken even in times of suffering. So a lot of people, I've met personally people who used to be, bhaktas of Bhagwan and they used to go to the temple and all, and somebody in their family dies. Like I have some friends like that, and somebody in the family dies and then they stop believing. They believe that the universe is a cruel place and Ishvara is cruel and all of these things, right? But if you understand that it is not Ishvara who is favoring you or disfavoring you, but it is just the way the laws work, then you never lose faith in the Shastra. You never lose faith in Bhagwan. You're always connected to Ishvara. In fact, in times of distress, you need Ishvara more than ever. And that is when one should actually be, forming this deep bond with Ishvara so that they can pass through these difficult times. But when people isolate themselves from Ishvara during times of trouble, then they remain mentally scarred for their whole life. So, you know, understanding these laws really help you build this firmer faith in the Shastra as well. In fact, you become even more, deeply convinced about the efficacy of the teachings of the Shastra. Then it allows you to take responsibilities for your future and do what's required in the present. As you said correctly before, that you stop worrying about the future and you start doing stuff that's required to be done in the present. And it also answers fundamental questions about ethics, like what are the right sorts of things I should do? How do I know that this is the right action? How do I know this is a bad karma, whatever? So it makes you it makes you question your own actions, and you start trying to hone the qualities of your actions and try to become a better person day by day. So when you improve the things that you do, you automatically see that there's a change in your life. You feel better about it. Your perspective and your position on life improves. And it also helps you understand metaphysics, right? The metaphysical order of the universe, that this karma is an inbuilt law. It helps you understand that. And as a whole, society benefits. It brings moral order to the whole society when you and everybody else starts living by the code of dharma. And the code of dharma is to understand the laws of karma as well. So karma is a part of dharma, the part of the order. So any questions here so far? Or is there something you'd like to discuss just in general?
I want to say that normally you might have seen a lot of times in Facebook saying that that guy did bad thing. Let karma will teach them and like that. So just give a take on it. I think that would
Yeah,
be very
and a
useful.
lot of people, as you said, I've seen that it's a meme, right? People have created, and it's kind of like, uh, you know, karma gets back to you. I want to see, I believe in karma, and I hope it like really comes back with a vengeance, that kind of thing. So, the understanding the laws of karma should not make us feel that okay, this person has done something bad, and therefore I'm waiting for you to receive the result of that bad karma because I know you're a bad person, and now all this bad stuff that's going to come to you, I'm going to wait for it. Yeah, that is kind of like a very immature way for people to look at dharma. I mean, look at karma, because again, you are creating an action by the very thought, and that action is coming back as a result, which is chitta ashuddhi. So the more you wish bad for others, suppose I wish to see somebody else suffer also, then I am going to be the one who's suffering in the end because it's going to make me more impure, right? Mentally, I will gain impurity. So, like if there's a terrorist, and obviously you have to bring the person to justice, right? At times you may have to even kill a person if required. But then the killing also should be done compassionately with the right intention that the reason I have to kill this terrorist as a policeman is that I'm trying to bring order to society. I'm trying to preserve dharma. I'm not trying to violate dharma. And as long as this terrorist exists, he will create more adharma and he will create more negative consequences, and people will be, suffer losses because he may kill people. So to even hurt somebody else, you have to do it with a compassionate outlook that I'm hurting you in order to help a lot more people. It's kind of like the greater good. You're preserving the greater good. So sometimes if you have a child and he's like very indisciplined, sometimes you may have to, if politely talking doesn't work, you may have to scold the person that this is what you're doing is very incorrect, and you may have to hurt that person mentally also. So but if it preserves a greater good, if it teaches a valuable lesson, then it's worth it. So, like once I remember when I was a child and I used to have this bad habit of, today we have these whatever electronic detectors in these elevators that you put your hand in between and it doesn't close, it opens back up, right? You can just like put your hand there. But back then you had these grills. I don't know, most of you know about it, but you had these grills which you close and open. And I used to actually put my hand through the grill between each floor and bring it back before the next floor comes up. And my dad like gave me a real shouting one day because I kept doing that and he used to tell me not to do that. I could cut my hand off. I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old. And so he shouted at me and he's like, this is stupid. Like, stop doing that. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. And then I stopped it. And that was for my good. And I never did that again. So sometimes you have to cause a little bit of pain in order to preserve the larger good, and that is very important. And that is also part of karma only, right? The laws of karma and understanding dharma, and you do it compassionately. You don't do it with the intention to hurt somebody else. You do it with the intention of helping as many people as you can. So that is the mature way to understand and to apply the laws of karma in our life. So
I guess the underlying motive matters over here more than like the motive will give rise to a specific action.
yeah, the motive will give rise to the result also.
Sir, I have one more doubt. Like we say, moksha is the when we have gnanam, it is like negating all the karma, right?
Yeah.
When we will say, then how this action is completely negated. Means means if I am for example, let us assume that I am a person, I have did lot of good karmas, like I helped others and like that. But I have my gnanam, so I stopped the action. But whereas I have previous phalams, right, from long back, sanchita karma,
Yeah.
yeah. How are they? Uh, means what happens to them?
Okay,
Because I
good.
am not relating them. So
I see what you're saying. So both you and Unnati were talking about this earlier, and so now we are going to talk about the life cycle of an ajnani and the life cycle of a jnani. Okay, so the ajnani is born as a result of his actions. Prior karmas will give rise to his prarabdha. He will face certain situations in his life. This ajnani will continue to live his life like a normal person. He may be a good person, he may be a not so good person, but the point is that he's not gained jnana nishtha. Therefore, he's not a Brahma Jnani yet. So when this Ajnani dies, what happens is he still has doership, right? The Kartutva and the Bhoktutva have not gone away for the person. The doer is the one who performs the actions, and the doer is the same person who becomes an enjoyer, right? The Karta and the Bhokta are not separate. The one who is a Karta will definitely be a Bhokta. But when the person stops being a Karta, then the Bhokta will also go away. You see what I'm saying? That when the doer goes away, the enjoyer will also go away. So
Yeah,
as long as the Ajnani is the doer, as long as he is the performer of actions, he will also be the receiver and the recipient of all his results. So when the Ajnani dies, what happens is his physical body is burnt, right? You cremate the person. The Sukshma Sharira, the one who identifies with all the actions and whatnot, will continue on to the next life. In the next Janma, again the Karana Sharira will bring the Sukshma and the Sthula Sharira together as a result of his karmas, because the Sharira, the physical body, is Sat Karma Janyam. It is a result of Punya Karma. So again, if he's performed a lot of good actions, then he'll get a exalted birth either in Swarga or even on this earthly realm. He may be in a very favorable situation or whatnot. If he's performed a lot of papam, then he may go to Naraka for a period and you come back, right? You kind of like, as we talked about, you spend some money in Las Vegas, you come back. Same way you may spend some money and you may go to these Arab countries and you'll come back. So, at the same time, you just have to understand that Swarga and Naraka are places which give rise to favorable and unfavorable results. That's all. And so, the life cycle of an Ajnani is that he will travel where his karma takes him. And then he'll perform new karmas and he'll keep the travel will continue. He's a traveler. He's a many lifelong traveler. Now, for the Jnani, what happens is that at the time of Jnanam, and what I mean is at the time of Jnanam is when he gains Brahma Nishtha, when he gains that firmness, when the Nididhyasanam is complete, and when he has gained a firm abidance in Brahma Vidya, in Brahma, that is what you call a jnani, right? That is the moment he gains moksha, the moment jnanam happens, the avidya related to self-knowledge, related to atma jnanam is gone. Atma jnanam is gone and replaced by atma jnanam. And this atma jnanam is what gives rise to that is what moksha is really. Atma, the jnanam is moksha. Now, for the jnani, there is no kartutva because he knows that I am not a doer. The doer is the one who performs actions, whereas the self, Atma, is actionless, right? The Jiva can perform actions, but Atma does not perform any actions. And while the jnani identifies with the Atma, he knows that there is only the Atma, there's only Brahman, there's nothing other than Brahman. And therefore, he has completely dismissed the fact or the wrong idea that he was an actor, he was a doer, he was a performer of actions, he was a karta. It's gone. And now what happens is at the time of Sanchita, and this I was speaking to Swamini ji, Vilasananda ji, and Karana Sharira is the base for Sanchita Karma. Sanchita Karma has its adhishthanam in the Karana Sharira. The Karana Sharira is where the karma is stored. Upon Jnanam, as we talked about, maybe we haven't, I don't know, but when one gains Jnanam, the Karana Sharira is destroyed. The avidya aspect of the Karana Sharira is completely destroyed. So there is no place for the Sanchita Karma to be there anymore, right? Because when the base is destroyed, then what can sit on top of it? The whole notion that I am a doer is gone, therefore you cannot be an enjoyer. So the entire bag of Sanchita Karma is exhausted, it is extinguished, it's gone, it's up in flames, it's burnt up. That's why we term knowledge as this light, right? As a deepa, and we term ignorance as a darkness. The knowledge lights up the ignorance, the self-knowledge drives away the Atma Vidya, and the Karana Sharira is destroyed, the causal body is destroyed. The causal body is what is responsible for the Sthula and the Sukshma Shariras to come together. And when the causal body goes away, or when it's completely destroyed, then there's no base for the uh, Shansita to sit on top of it because the Karana is gone. So once the Karana goes away, what happens? The Jnani continues to live his life, right? Why does he live his life? Because he, as though, is the one who receives results, but in reality, he was never a doer. He understands that he was not a doer, and therefore he is not the enjoyer. But the one who enjoys is the Sharira. The Sharira enjoys the results of the actions that are continuing to flow like the Prarabdha. So the example I can give over here is that if you have a car, and you're driving a car and you're hitting the accelerator, it continues to move forward. But now suppose you stop hitting you remove your leg from the accelerator, the car will continue to roll. And as it continues to roll, it will slow down, slow down, slow down, and eventually come to a stop. Similarly, the jnani will also appear to continue to roll as a result of the prarabdha that keeps unfolding. But eventually that will also come to a stop. And when the prarabdha ends, what happens is the body falls, the physical body falls, and the jnani, the body is cremated, and the sukshma sharira dissolves into the physical, into the subtle universe, right? The sthula sharira melts into the physical universe because it becomes, the five elements. You have ash that's scattered across, and then you have the smoke which escapes into the atmosphere. So the physical body goes into the physical universe, whereas the sukshma sharira goes into the subtle universe, and it merges with Hiranyagarbha. And where is the jnani? There's no place for the jnani to go because the jnani is Brahman, right? Therefore, all that there was is Brahman, all that there is Brahman, all that there ever will be is Brahman. And this is the life cycle of a jnani. So, is this clear so far?
Yes, it is clear.
So, the prarabdha will continue to unfold basically. I think Unnati missed some stuff, but Unnati, when was the last time that you were disconnected? I can repeat it, I guess.
Yeah, just the last line.
Okay. So, what I was saying is that in a nutshell, basically, the jnani completely dismisses the wrong notion that he is a karta. When the karta goes away, the bhokta also goes away, right? Because the karta and the bhokta are one. The one who was receiving the results was the one who identified with the actions. So,
Yeah.
upon jnanam, the karana sharira is destroyed. The avidya is gone. The karana sharira was the base for the sanchita karma. When the base goes away, then there's no place for the sanchita to sit. So the sanchita is completely extinguished. It's completely gone. And just like a normal person, uh, the prarabdha continues to unfold, right? The prarabdha is related to the results of the body and the situation around you. So that continues to unfold. Just as, I was telling Dilip bhai that you have a car, you're accelerating, but then you stop hitting the accelerator. It will still roll for some time, then it will come to a stop eventually, right? Similarly, the
Right.
jnani's body and the mind will continue to roll for a period of time. It will continue to be there. But then when the prarabdha runs out, then the body will fall. When the body falls, it will be burnt, it will be cremated. And
Hmm.
after cremation, the body, the physical body will become a part of the physical universe because it goes into ashes, it goes into smoke, it goes up in flames. His
Right.
Sukshma Sharira, remember we said the Karana Sharira is responsible for the Sukshma and the Sthula to come together. So once the Karana is gone, the Sukshma Sharira has nothing to connect to because it's not a doer, it's free. And
Right.
therefore the Sukshma Sharira melts into the subtle universe, into Hiranyagarbha. And now, where is the Jnani? The Karana is gone, the Stula is gone, the Sukshma is gone. So, where's the Jnani? There is only the
Yeah.
Jnani, there is only Brahman. So, there's nothing other than the Jnani. That is
Yeah.
the whole beautiful thing. So,
Right.
and Tattva Bodha also says that once you gain Jivan Mukta, once you become a Jnani, whether you die at the sacred, courts, die at the sacred banks of the Kashi, or you die at the house of a dog eater, uh, you're free. It's not going to affect you because once you're a Jnani, you're a Jnani. Whatever situations you encounter in your life are completely independent then of who you are. It only affects the physical body and the mind. So this is the life cycle of a jnani that he is set
Ah,
free from Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. The cycle of samsara ends for him the moment he's gained jnanam. This is what's important.
ah,
Many people think that moksha happens after you die, but moksha happens while you're alive, while you're a jnani, while you're living as a jnani, until your body falls. And then what you have is videha mukti.
right.
The jnani lives, uh, you know,
like Jivan
a
Mukti.
free life as a Jivan Mukta, and that is what moksha is.
Right.
So, and that is why we were talking about like the other day that results have to be here and now. If something is to convince you, it has to be immediate. You cannot rely on like an afterlife result that you will see God somewhere in heaven. The moksha is here and now. It's not after you die. So
Makes more sense to continue doing good actions now.
yeah, yeah. Once you understand the laws, you have to abide in it. In fact, I'll tell you what, if you know something is wrong and you do it, that will earn you more papam than to do something like without knowing it's wrong. So I'm going to scare you guys a bit. So now that you understand the laws of karma, you have no reason to do anything wrong. Otherwise, you'll get papam. I'm just joking. Actually, it's true, but
No, it's
that's why intelligence is a privilege.
um, yeah, because every time, even if we are doing something wrong, our conscious tells us that, this action is wrong. But
Yeah,
still we somehow pacify ourselves by saying it's okay, I've done it. So we don't reflect or contemplate upon it like what action I've done, and maybe next time I should not repeat the same action.
yeah.
So I guess this makes more sense.
Yes. So that's why like knowledge is a privilege that way, that if you have knowledge and you're knowingly doing something that's good, then you will gain a lot of punya for it, much more than you if you do it unconsciously, right? So I may okay, let me put it this way. Suppose I'm walking down the street and there's a guy who's like dying of hunger, but I don't notice him. I just have a half-eaten sandwich and I just like throw it on the side, but I don't know he's there. And later he goes and eats the sandwich and he lives because of my action. Am I going to get punya for it? Not really, because I never intended to give it to him. I threw it in the dustbin.
Right.
But now, suppose I see the guy, the same action. Basically, I just give it to him instead of throwing in a dustbin.
Hmm.
Now, I am actually responsible to some extent for that result, a lot. And therefore, I will get the punya because I deliberately performed the action. So, if you perform, as a so-called punyakari result takes place because of an action that's not deliberate, then you will not really get too much punya for it. You may get a small, tiny sum. Similarly, like if I'm walking down the street and if I see an ant and I step on it purposely, obviously I'm going to get a lot of papam for that. But if I walk and I step on it by mistake and I don't even see it, then I will get a very small amount of papam for it, which I can, you know, say
Recover.
I can recover. I can do a small prayaschitta karma for all my papams throughout the day, and they will be
Right.
negated. So kayena vacha manasendriyarva. So anything I may have done wrong through my mano vacha and kaya, like please forgive me. intentionally or unintentionally have done something wrong. Intentional actions have a lot more results than unintentional actions, whether it's punya or papa.
Yeah.
So now the jnani basically is an embodiment of compassion, right? He's an embodiment of dharma because it's nothing other than Ishvara performing through, manifesting through this physical body, because the jnani and Ishvara are one, identical. The upadhi of the sharira will still be there. The sharira will still have its limitations, but the jnani's identity has become Ishvara's identity, and therefore whatever the actions of the jnani are, supposed actions of the jnani, are only a consequence of the prarabdha of other people around him. So the jnani, while he's alive, will still affect people's lives, right? But whatever result that they receive is a result of their own karma. He's merely the nimitta. He's become the instrument, the agent through which people receive their results. But he by himself is free. He's not taking any onus or accountability for those actions. They are not performed by him. He's not the doer anymore. So that is the jnani versus ajnani.
Mm. And that's where it distinguishes karta and bhokta. So that also goes away, right?
Yes. So the karta and the bhukta are one. When the karta goes away, the bhukta will also go away.
Right.
As
Makes
long as I feel that I've done something, I will also feel that I've received something. I cannot do without taking the onus over the receiving.
sense.
So, so this is actually the end of Tattva Bodha, and next
Wow.
week, yeah, next week we have our presentation as a group that we'll all present our ideas and connect them together as a flow chart or model or whatever you want to do. And so let's see. We were discussing earlier, right, that maybe it might take one session, maybe even take two sessions. So I'm not going to put a time limit on it. People can talk as much as they want until they feel satisfied that they've explained their position. And if everybody doesn't have much to say, then we can even end it earlier. I mean, depending on how much people can talk. I know that, based on, I guess, the stuff that we've done, it might go easily one lecture, probably one session, but let's see. I'm not like really planning. So next week we'll meet, and please, whoever wants to do the flow chart or the diagram or the schematic, and if you have to send it in, like please send it in by latest by the 9th, so that I can put it together in a PowerPoint, so that we don't have to keep switching the screens. I can just leave my screen on, and you can explain your material as you go along, and it can all be in like one consolidated place. So in the end, like maybe we'll just look at the way people are thinking, and if we have any comments, we can like comment on each other's work. That way it'll be constructive criticism. If somebody has a wrong connection, we can like maybe talk about it, we can discuss it. So, and we can all learn from each other. Maybe somebody has a very unique way of doing things which we didn't think about earlier, and it'll give a more refinement to our own understanding. And I'll probably give a little note about what these models are and how seriously we should take them. So we'll see that next time. Let's wrap up for today.
Yeah.
Okay. ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ